Welcome to the DreamNation Breakfast Club. I am your host, Josh Valentine, and the Breakfast Club is brought to you by the Journey Podcast with Josh Valentine, of course. And for those of you who are hopping on for the very first time, welcome. Happy to have you here with us, where we gather together with our community every single Tuesday at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And every single week, we cover something different around personal development, life coaching, things that could essentially make your life better. So I'm really excited because today we're going to be covering the new rules of leadership. So everything leadership and basically how leadership applies in today's world. So a lot of great information that we're going to be unpacking here. And if you guys don't mind, drop a like, comment, share, tag someone who can get value from today's session. If you're watching the replay, drop an R in the comments. And really happy to be here with you all. I see we have people tuning in from different parts of the world. And in case you don't know, the Breakfast Club is actually streamed on multiple platforms across social media, but you could also find it at the Journey Podcast, wherever podcasts are streamed. So let's get ready to jump right into it. For those of you who are new to our community, we actually share a bunch of different life hacks and fun facts before we get kickstarted with the meat and potatoes of the Breakfast Club. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. We have life hack number 1. And I would highly suggest you guys take notes. I always say that we're a note-taking community because if you are taking notes, you're far more likely to remember and retain the information that we're going to be sharing here this morning. Now, life hack number 1, the 3-minute leadership habit. So basically the way this works is every morning you send one message of appreciation to someone on your team or in your circle. It could be someone in your tribe. This tiny habit primes your brain for leadership by training you to look for value in other people, not flaws. So really, really great habit. And as I read through this yesterday, I was thinking to myself, like, man, that's definitely something that I would like to do a lot more of, just sending an appreciation message every single morning, right? Especially for myself, I lead thousands of people all around the world. And sometimes you just get inundated with life and you forget to do the little things that go such a long way. And by the way, for those of you who are just starting your journey, I know we have a lot of young people who tune into the Breakfast Club. I would highly recommend whenever you reach out to a mentor, whenever you reach out to someone for, let's say, just counsel or advice, send a handwritten letter. Handwritten letters go a long way. And the reason why they're even more potent today than ever before is because it's becoming less and less of a thing. These days, everything is typed. Everything is on email or social media, but how rare is it to actually receive a handwritten letter? It shows that you went above and beyond, right? You actually took the time to write a letter out. So I would highly recommend that, even if you're not young or anytime someone does something significant for you, just writing that handwritten letter goes a long way. Now, life hack number 2, the pause and respond method. The pause and respond method. The way this works is before reacting to anything emotional or unexpected, take a 3-second pause. Great leaders don't just respond, they respond with intention. This pause lowers emotional impulsivity by up to 40%, according to cognitive psychology research. So really, really great share. And, think about that. I remember learning about the lizard brain years ago, and the lizard brain is pretty much our most ancient brain. It's our brain that responds to circumstances. So that fight or flight mechanism that we have, that sympathetic nervous system, that is essentially how our lizard brain operates. It's like if it feels like it's under attack, then you'll have just your body naturally responds, right? Now, you also have the most evolved parts of your brain, like the prefrontal cortex. That's the last part of your brain to evolve, located near your forehead. And the way the prefrontal cortex works is it's essentially responsible for logical thinking, rational thinking, and so on and so forth. So sometimes it really does help to take those few seconds to really process what's going on, rather than acting off of impulse because of that lizard brain. Okay, so the pause and respond method, really, really great method. When you think about why a lot of people end up incarcerated, many times it's because they're inability to cope with emotions. They kind of act on a whim and end up doing something that ultimately leads to them being incarcerated. So the pause and respond method, really, really great framework. And I mean, it's only 3 seconds, right? And even in marriage, sometimes, whether it's in marriage or your most intimate relationships, sometimes someone says something that triggers you, and I know I'm guilty of it. I'll have those moments where you feel some type of way, and the first thing you're thinking about is just clapping back with something even more intense. But I mean, the 3-second pause can apply to so many different relationships, whether it's business, your most intimate relationship, or even just parenting, right? Now, life hack number 3, the future self check-in. When faced with a decision, ask, what would the 5 years ahead version of me choose right now? This basically removes ego and emotion from the decision and aligns you with long-term leadership behavior, right? When was the last time you actually thought about the consequences of what it is that you're doing? And it's something that a lot of people don't reflect on. Like, man, how is this going to affect my life in the next 10 years or 10 months? I love the 10-10-10 rule. Like, how is this going to affect me, or how is it going to make me feel in the next 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 days, 10 months, 10 years, right? Just really thinking about the consequences of your actions. Sometimes we do things, again, out of response, and they're things that do have an effect on us down the road. So really, really great life hack. Now, let's jump into some fun facts here. Fun fact number 1, people are 24% more likely to follow someone who speaks with calm confidence rather than high intensity. Leadership is energy, and calm intensity commands respect. It's a really, really great share, because I know a lot of people, their leadership style, and I'm most certainly guilty of this, where I tend to be very passionate at times, and sometimes that passion, that excitement is something that actually scares people away. So being that person that's very calm, cool, and collected, and that was actually one of my affirmations for a very long time, being calm, cool, and collected, rather than just being the loudest person in the room, being the most calm person in the room, because sometimes go even further, because people just respect it, right? When everybody's just shouting and going crazy, and you're the one that comes with that deep wisdom, and you speak from a place of certainty and clarity, and people just feel safer, right? They feel safer when they're around leaders like that. Fun fact number 2. Over 70% of the workforce says their boss has a greater impact on their mental health than their therapist or doctor. Leadership literally affects people's biology. Think about that for a second, right? Over 70% of the workforce says that their boss has a greater impact on their mental health. Like, there's some bosses out there stressing people out. Some of you are probably like, well, that ain't the case for me. That's probably because you're that boss, right? Stressing everybody the hell out. And to think that your boss would have an effect on your mental health, it's just crazy. So that goes to show you that when it comes to just leadership overall, it's far more important, and it's far more impactful than people realize. So it is essential to be a pleasure to work with, because when you think about it, in today's economy, in today's marketplace, you oftentimes hear about companies that struggle with retention. There's a lot of employees that they're just like, you know what, screw this company, I'll just go work for somewhere else. And the reason why a lot of companies struggle with retention is simply because of the leadership. Think about how many people will stick it out with the job. Some of you are probably watching this are one of those people that will stick it out with the job or stick it out with a company simply because you work for someone you generally like or respect. Someone that's easy to work with. I was talking with one of my clients, and she had to work at a different location across the country for what she does for a living. And she spoke about, it was a franchise business, and she spoke about how one environment was just radically different than the other environment. One environment was just very like fun, and everybody kind of got along, everybody was friends. And then the other environment just felt very serious, right? And it wasn't fun. And what she mentioned was she felt that it had to do with the leadership, right? It was a lot of the leadership that affected that. So, when you think about it, the leader, a rising tide raises all ships, right? And leadership is leading your ship. And your ship may very well be your company, it may be your church, it may be your organization, your sports team, whatever it is. But typically you're going to set the tone for the rest of the organization. All right, next up we have, let's see here, over 70, my apologies. Fun fact number 3. The highest performing teams in the world have one common trait. They feel psychologically safe, meaning they can speak up without fear. This is something any leader can create. Super, super important for so many reasons, obviously. But I mean, think about that. When people feel psychologically safe to the point where they don't have to worry about, walking on eggshells. They don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to lose their job or lose their position because of speaking their mind. And it is very essential to have that, right? A lot of the greatest companies in the world have an open door policy where you can pretty much walk into, no matter what executive they are, they could be C-suite executive, even down to the CEO. And no matter who the person is, whether it's the secretary or the janitor or a top manager, everybody has the ability to, knock on that door of that CEO and address their concerns, right? So this is a big, big part of just running an effective organization. Now, next let's jump into the main topic, which is on leadership, right? And leadership that applies to today's world, because leadership does evolve over time. A lot of the fundamental principles remain the same, but when it really comes down to it, there are a lot of aspects that change about leadership when you have changing times, right? Certain forms of leadership work better with other organizations or better times. And in terms of like the underlying aspects of leadership, many of those things are foundational, but there's different styles of leadership. There's different ways of going about leadership. And that's what we're going to be covering here today. Now, what leadership really is. So leadership is not a title or followers. A lot of people get confused with today's modern day age. You have like influencers, right? And you think about influencers, and a lot of people tend to forget that just because someone is an influencer doesn't mean that they're a leader. How many of you can relate to that? Like, a lot of people who are very popular and they're quote unquote influencers, but they can't even influence themselves, right? There's influence and then there's impact. Two completely different things. You may be influencing people to do certain things, but how impactful are you as a person? So when it comes to leadership, remember, it's not a specific title. It's not the amount of followers you have on your social media, right? It's true influence. It's responsibility. It's service to those who you are leading. Now, the difference between being in charge and being a leader, is people choose to follow, right? Being a leader, people choose to follow is a big, big part of it. Because, some people are assigned, let's just say, positions where they're in charge. And maybe, there's nepotism in the company and someone just appointed you as the leader, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to gain everybody's respect. You may be in charge for that specific responsibility, but it doesn't mean your team is going to respect you, right? Or even choose to follow you. Okay, so are you a person that people genuinely choose to follow? Now, true leadership equals who you are when no one is watching. This is a big part of the equation. Now, this is something that I was taught years ago, right? That's true integrity. When you are the person on, let's just say the inside that everybody else sees on the outside. And I always share on the Breakfast Club that one of the things that I genuinely love about bringing friends and family over to stay with us, we've had friends and family who've stayed with us for weeks at a time, sometimes even months. And for me, I think that that's one of the the ways if you truly want to get to know someone, then live with them for a little while. You'll get to know them really quick and who they truly are. So when I bring family, when I bring friends, or even people that I mentor, and they come hang out with my family, they hang out with my children, speak to my wife, they can genuinely get an idea of who I am as a person at my core, just being around me long enough. So I think that when you have that level of accountability, right, it sort of pushes you to become more. Because again, some people, they put on the front because they're being watched by other people. But when you move in such a way where you're like, you know what, I may not be watched by other people, but I'm watched by God, right? It's a different level of integrity, and it's a different level of just character. When you are doing everything from a place of excellence, even in private, right? Because when you think about most people who succeed, most people who do incredible things, they're being praised in public for what they do in private. Right. So who are you when no one is watching? Are you still the person putting in the sweat equity, still putting in the work? Right. Even when there's no accolades, even when there's no pats on the back or claps or applause for what it is that you're doing. That's true leadership. Now, why modern leadership has shifted from authority to authenticity. For a very long time, when you think about a lot of Fortune 500 companies, the way they were built, a lot of it came from authority, right? But a lot of people, they kind of, that became a outdated way of going about leadership, right? It worked until it no longer worked. And now it genuinely is about authenticity because there's more eyes on you. You can't really get away with being this dictator as much as you could 30 years ago, right? These days, you'll get blasted all over the internet. You'll have people videoing you, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So it truly is more about authenticity than it is about authority in today's marketplace. Now, remember, leadership is a skill set, not necessarily a personality type. It's not about who's the most charismatic. It's not about who's the loudest in the room. It's really about who's the most effective. And that's the big idea. There have been a lot of charismatic leaders over the years, but eventually the truth will come to the light, and the aspects of you that just aren't really real or authentic, it will get exposed. Right. So it's more about the skill set of the leader. Is that leader effective when it's all said and done? Now, let's just be honest as well. You have some leaders like a Steve Jobs, for example, or Elon Musk, that they're very hard charging, and maybe you would even, call them a dictator. But the thing about it is they're also effective. They're effective. And that style of leadership, though, may not very well work for different organizations. So it just depends on the organization that you're leading. Okay. Are you effective when it's all said and done? Okay. Not just the personality. Now, the 5 core pillars of great leadership. Take notes because this is really, really good stuff. All right. And before we jump into the 5 core pillars of great leadership, just want to give you guys a quick heads up. So I am closing out the year with our phenomenal community with our, we have these 5-day challenges. And for the very first time, I actually created a challenge, not where we do together as a group, but a challenge where you guys get to work with me one-on-one for 5 days. I had a lot of people send in requests. Many people didn't know about it. So I just wanted to bring it up to our Breakfast Club community. And if you want more information on how you can work with me together one-on-one, I'm actually opening up a certain amount of slots every single week. Of course, there's only one of me, so I can't offer this all at the same time. However, I do have a standby list. And if you would like to get more information on how the one-on-one challenge works, it's you and I going deep, me coaching on you on whatever it is that you're working on. So if you're working on a specific business, or maybe you're in a transitional state in your life where you're going from one company to the next, one business to the next, or you're looking to launch something, book, podcast, or get into speaking, anything like that. hit me up. I'll be more than happy to send you more information on how you can work with me on a one-to-one basis. But I am opening this up to our community and opening up a certain amount of slots every single week. So if you want more info, DM me the word challenge wherever my social medias are, and I'll be more than happy to, get you connected and also just fill you in on any questions that you may have. Okay. Now, moving forward, the 5 core pillars of great leadership. Number 1, vision. Great leaders create clarity for others, right? And it's so true. Clarity of intention is power. And you hear the old saying that without vision, the people perish. So clarity is an essential component to really great leadership. You have to be very, very clear on what that mission actually is. Next, we have people don't follow you. They follow the future you help them see. Powerful, right? People follow the future that you help them see. Next is a vision is basically crafting a compelling but simple vision, right? That's what great leadership is, you craft a compelling but simple vision. Think about it. Sometimes when an organization is kind of like all over the place, they're struggling to scale their organization. And when I say scale, I mean multiply the organization, radically grow the organization. And there's a concept in the world of scaling, like the science of scaling something and getting it to multiply is simplicity. You see, complexity is the enemy to scaling. Simplicity is one of the key essentials to scaling something to what it can possibly be. It's just very, very simple, a simple plan of action that an organization can take. Not these complex systems where it's super confusing and you have a lot of conflicting goals within the organization. You have to have a very clear and concise vision and simplify whatever it is that you're working on and get everybody to rally around that one common, simple vision. Next, we have emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. So EQ is very different than IQ. Oftentimes you hear a lot about IQ, and my kids will oftentimes they'll hear about IQ and they'll ask me about like what my IQ is, right? And the very first rebuttal to that question is me basically asking them, well, do you know about EQ? You can talk to any of my kids and they'll tell you exactly what EQ is, because what I explain to them is, look, IQ is great, but the people who do truly incredible things have a lot more EQ than IQ, meaning they're better at emotional intelligence than just having a great intellect. Because emotional intelligence is really what's going to propel you in the marketplace, being able to work with people, being able to empathize with people, right? That's what leadership truly is. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. And remember, when it comes to EQ accounts for 90% of what makes someone a strong leader. It's how that leader can empathize and kind of feel the temperature of where people are at in the organization. Now, self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and communication are all big parts of EQ, right? It's how aware are you? Or when it comes to your mood, how quick can you get back to being in a state of equanimity where you're on an even keel, you're not all over the place emotionally, right? But it's also being able to empathize with people. Maybe you're someone who's really good at not being so emotional, but you struggle with empathy. Empathy is a really, really big part of the equation. Now, I was watching a podcast yesterday, and on the podcast, the speaker had mentioned that usually trauma happens when in a moment where someone goes through something very traumatic and there's not a witness to empathize with that person in that moment. So the trauma sort of gets buried within. There's no one to empathize. Maybe the person feels guilt or shame, or, they're just feeling distraught, confused, and there's no one there to empathize with them in the moment. Right. So really, really important to understand when people are under a great deal of stress, being that person that's an ear to listen, being that person that can help soothe someone and let them know that they're feeling, let them know that they're seen, that they're heard, right? Giving them the ability to feel seen and heard. That's a super, super important part when it comes to modern day leadership, right? And just how effectively you communicate. Now, your emotional state also sets the culture for your organization. The very culture that you lead within your organization, it really is predicated on your emotional state as the leader, right? A rising tide raises all ships. So that's the idea. Next, we have communication, which is another core pillar of great leadership. Communication is essentially clear, clean, direct communication that eliminates 90% of the drama. Not getting caught up in the problems, being a solution-oriented person. Isn't it like, for those of you who are leaders, I'm sure you guys can understand, it's like super exhausting when you're in a culture where everybody's just focusing on the problems and no one is focusing on the solutions, right? And this is a big part of it, because how in the world are you going to get to where you want to be when the very problems and obstacles are always being magnetized, if you will, right? What you focus on expands. So if you're constantly focusing on the drama and what's going wrong or the problems, you're just going to get more of that. So creating a culture of problem solving is essential. Also, you want to speak so people understand, not so you sound so smart. And it's interesting because when you see people who are very effective leaders, you'll notice that many times it's not that they're all, super polished, or they're the person that speaks like very intellectual, like a scholar. It's the person that uses very simple language. I mean, when you think about even some presidents, right? Some presidents may not have the most advanced vocabulary, but they speak in a very simple, relatable way, right? So that's a clear indication that you sounding sophisticated is not necessarily what's going to appoint you as a leader. People have to understand you. They have to be able to relate to you. And sometimes the advanced speaking and sounding like a scholar could actually work against you. Next, we have how to give direction, feedback, and appreciation effectively is also a big part of the communication, right? Giving direction, feedback, and appreciation. Just like we mentioned earlier with the life hack, it really is effective to just show appreciation. People need appreciation like they need oxygen in an organization. There's so many people that are leaving organizations simply because they feel like they're being tolerated instead of celebrated. And that's one of the worst things. You always want to go to an environment where you feel celebrated instead of just tolerated. And a lot of people leave organizations because of that. Number 4, in terms of the core pillars of great leadership, is decision-making. Decision-making. And by the way, if you guys are getting value so far from today's information, drop a V in the comments. Drop a V for value if you're getting value so far. So number 4 is decision-making. Now, leaders make decisions quickly with limited information. So there's a term in football. I played football in college, for those of you who know, and there's a saying in football that you want to be able to think on your feet, right? So in football, everything is happening so fast. The game is happening so fast. And if you get caught up in your head, like you've already missed the opportunity to make a play, or you missed an opportunity to make a tackle. So you do have to go off of instincts and think on your feet in a sense. And when it comes to leadership, it's very similar. You can't just be there with your head in the clouds trying to figure out what's the next move. A lot of leadership is instincts. You have to decide quickly many times, even though you have limited information. Right. And then now, are there moments where you have to really process things and think them through? Absolutely. But don't be the person that's always caught up with paralysis of analysis and you don't end up making those critical decisions in a timely manner. Also, indecision, remember, kills momentum. Indecision kills momentum. And this is super important to understand, right? There are a lot of people that are just not decisive. And this is one of the things that really hinder an organization from prospering. Now, the rule is basically this. If you can't decide, choose the option that aligns with your values. That's why values are so important, because values are those things that essentially help you think on your feet. They help you make decisions a lot quicker, because all you really have to do is like, well, does this align with my values? Is this a hell yes? Usually the things that are a hell yes are things that essentially align with your North Star or your values. So next we have accountability. This is the last pillar. Accountability. So great leaders own everything, even what wasn't their fault. This is major, 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 major. So many of you know, I run a podcast, I have a traveling podcast, and we have a team that comes, does the production, everything like that. Every once in a while, we'll have some issues from the production side. Many of you also know about our creators conference that we have once a year. And there are going to be those moments where things just break, things go wrong, and there's someone on your team that may have made a mistake or lost a file or something like that, or whatever information gets damaged. And for me, one thing that I've learned is just to take full responsibility, even if it wasn't my fault. Like, there's nothing worse than going back to someone you interviewed for 2 hours and who's a very influential person and asking them for a second shot because their episode got deleted or accidentally just got lost in the clouds, right? But you as the leader have to take responsibility. And sometimes it's a little bit painful, right? It's cringe to have to go and take responsibility for maybe someone else's mistake on your team. But true leaders move like that. It's like, you know what? I'll take the fall. And sometimes that's one of the best things that you can do, because you'll have someone in your organization that's maybe super talented, but they made a mistake. And that one mistake, right? You're there drilling them for it and scolding them for it. And that'll freak someone the hell out to the point where they want to leave the organization. Right. And it'll be discouraging to them. And again, as a leader, you have to be a pleasure to work with. That's the biggest thing. Right. Sometimes leaders, that's their prerequisite for working with them. The person that they're leading has to be a pleasure to work with. But even as a leader, you have to be a pleasure to work with. So don't have an environment where people feel like they have to walk on eggshells, and be willing to take the fall when things break within your organization. Okay, so big part of the process. Now, the idea more than anything is, if it happened under my leadership, it's my responsibility. And remember, you guys hear me mention this all the time. Responsibility is nothing more than your ability to respond. How do you respond to setbacks, obstacles, when things break, right? How do you respond to it? That's what leadership is. And you have to expand your capacity for what you can be responsible for if you want great leadership. If you want to be a great leader, remember, service to the many leads to greatness. What makes you a great person is becoming a person that is a great leader. That's what essentially, allows you to become a person of greatness. Now, accountability builds trust deeper than charisma ever will. Accountability. Just owning up to it, right? Admitting when you're wrong. And again, sometimes it's humble pie, and it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's so much better to go to people and go to your organization and just genuinely apologize. There have been countless moments over the years where I'm working within my organization. And for those of you who followed my entrepreneurial journey, I've led tens of thousands of people over the years in business. And there have been countless scenarios where I just have to apologize because maybe I didn't show up for the team the way they needed, or maybe I said something that probably wasn't the most politically correct or whatever. Like, it happens all the time. And apologies go a long way. In fact, organizations are now becoming more and more aware of this, to the point where whenever there's a disruption in, let's say, distribution, or a customer may have received a product that they didn't want, or it's taking longer, now companies will send out emails or notifications and apologizing for it. And and doing what they can to make the customer happy, right? But just owning up to their mistakes. And people appreciate that. A lot of people will extend grace. You'll be surprised at how your customers will extend grace just by a simple apology. Now, section 3 of today's session is common traits of great leaders. Common traits of great leaders. How do you know whether or not someone is a great leader? First and foremost, they stay calm under pressure. They stay calm under pressure. I remember learning from the mayor of New York during 9/11. The mayor of New York was just shuffling around, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And everybody was in panic. And one of the things that the mayor got praised for was how he went about handling the city during that time. And what he had mentioned was a lesson that he had learned from his father early on in life. And that lesson was simply this: when everybody's in a state of panic, be the calmest person in the room. When everybody is under panic, when all hell breaks loose and there's chaos all over, great leaders are the calmest person in the room. You're the person that is a safe space for everyone, right? You're the person that can operate on that even keel to help your team get to the destination that they need to go in, right? It doesn't help if you're freaking out as well, because by you freaking out, everybody else is going to freak out. It's like if you're the head of your household. Imagine if you're always in a state of panic or frenzy, like your children are not going to feel very safe. Your significant other is not going to feel very safe. So you have to be the calm in the storm. That's great leadership. Next is also they're consistent, not emotional. They're consistent. The best leaders in the world are people that you don't have to question their emotional state. They're not all over the place emotionally. They're consistent. They're solid. They're someone that people can go to when everyone is emotional, everybody is feeling some type of way, and they can go to you as a safe space. They know that you're not going to get caught up in the emotions, right? And sometimes it's hard because you may be feeling some type of way, but you have to be that safe space that your organization can go to. Next is they treat people with dignity and fairness. They treat people with dignity and fairness. This is a big part of it. And sometimes, like, for example, you have organizations where the C-suite executive is valued more than the secretary, right? Because people may feel, well, this secretary can be replaced or whatever. But listen, many times the secretary is the one with all the secrets. Many times the secretary is the gatekeeper of that organization. Like, even the janitor knows a lot more than you realize and has a lot more power than you realize. And it is essential to treat everybody with that sense of dignity and respect. Okay. Next, leaders inspire through example, not just words. It's not just words. It's you have to walk that talk. You have to be the person that people are like, man, you know, they follow your lead. And they know like the tempo of the organization is because of the leader and the way they move. They move with integrity. They move with respect. Big part of it. Okay. Next, they tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Great leaders tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard having that conversation with someone who's a really good friend, and you're like, you're dropping the ball right now. Like you're not moving the way you need to move. And one thing that I would recommend is you always praise in public and give feedback in private, right? You praise in public, criticize in private. And when I say criticize, it's more feedback than anything. It's not just scolding someone for their shortcomings. It's genuinely giving that feedback that can help them, but do it in private. Don't put anybody on blast, because that'll be one of the fastest ways to lose people. Because think about it, even if someone wasn't the person that was put on blast, and by the way, for those of you who don't know what put on blast, that's the way in New York we say, like, put someone on the spot, right? So even if you weren't the one put on the spot, isn't it true that sometimes you'll look at how an organization handles a situation and you're like, man, I don't want to be in that situation. I like, what if they did that with me? And there'll be people that leave that organization not because of what happened to them, but because of what they saw in another situation with someone that wasn't even them. They may have seen their coworker get scolded by that leader and put on blast by that leader. And they're like, nah, this isn't an organization that I want to work with. These are the silent killers that you never even realize, right? There's so many things that are silent killers. I've seen so many leaders stifle their growth, and they had no idea that people had quit simply because they saw how that leader handled another situation. And it happens all the time. These are the silent killers that, and it's unfortunate when you see people who have great potential for leadership, but they don't have the awareness that that's actually what's happening behind the scenes. So you have to have that awareness, and you have to have people in your corner that tell you the truth. People that are going to tell you, like, hey, you know, you kind of dragged it with that. You know, so you pushed it a little bit with how you handled that situation. It's so valuable to have those people that can call out your blind spots, because sometimes we don't even realize. Sometimes we're so in the moment, we don't even realize that we didn't handle the situation in the best way possible, the most empathetic way possible. Next, leaders uplift the room. They don't drain it. They're not energy vampires, if you will. Great leaders, they're uplift. They bring the energy. They bring the life force. Isn't it great to work with people like that? Like, the moment they show up, the energy just goes up. It's not like everybody's like, oh, you know, here goes so-and-so. And now people start leaving the room. Don't be that person if you have aspirations to be a great leader. And then lastly, great leaders have discipline, humility, and courage. Discipline, humility, and courage. Who doesn't want to follow a leader like that? It's not always the courage, even sometimes it's the compassion, right? So it's having the heart of a lion, but also you have that compassion where, you know, you're strong, you're competent, but you also have the ability to empathize with people on a very deep level. Now, how to build leadership in your daily life. First and foremost, lead yourself first. Lead yourself first. So many people want to become leaders and they can't even lead themselves, let alone their household. You have to be able to lead yourself. There's no way you're going to rise up to the great heights of leadership if you can't even lead yourself. So self-leadership creates social leadership. Being able to get yourself to do the things that you need to do to get the results that you want. It's like here on the Breakfast Club, if I couldn't lead myself to be on time and be consistent every single week, why would anybody follow? Why would you guys even care to be a part of this whole Breakfast Club community? You're not. I have to be willing to lead myself, getting the curriculum and getting the knowledge and all this stuff organized to provide the very best experience. But it all starts with me. There's so many nights or so many Tuesdays that I don't even feel up, but I have to lead myself so that I can lead the community. Okay. And remember, your habits, your discipline, your attitude, that's what people follow. They're not following necessarily how charismatic you are, how much swag you got. It's not just about that. It's your habits, your discipline, your attitude. People oftentimes fail to realize that your discipline, your reputation for discipline, your reputation for consistency, your reputation for humility, these things are valuable assets. Valuable assets. When people invested in my company, right, they weren't necessarily just investing in the business idea. They were investing in my integrity. They were investing in my consistency. They were investing in my reputation of showing up year after year after year. Reputation is currency. It's not just, you oftentimes hear your network is your net worth, right? But you can have a large network, but you don't have a large reputation in terms of a reputation for integrity, a reputation for someone who is always consistent. That's what people want. People want to invest in the person that they know is going to follow through on their word. And this is oftentimes when people reach out to me for counsel on whether or not they should embark on an endeavor. One of the first things that always comes to mind is this person going to follow through? You know, it is unfortunate. I see this happen all the time in business. People will bounce from one business to another business to another business to another business, and then they wonder why they never truly have impact as a leader. They wonder why people don't stay following them. It's because they're not consistent. They're not following through on what they said they would do on the last company or the last opportunity or the last endeavor, right? Well, today, like whenever I launch something, a lot of people know like, hey, he has stickability. And if for whatever reason, his last thing didn't work, it wasn't because of a lack of discipline or a lack of consistency or follow through. Right. So you have to also build a reputation as someone who makes really great decisions. So maybe you have discipline, maybe you have consistency, but you're not the best at making critical decisions. And now you're building a reputation of someone who always makes a decision based off of quick money, right? Or based off of impulse, based off of what everybody else is doing. Maybe you're following a trend. And that's how your decisions are based rather than making decisions based on values. You see, for me, I value my reputation in business, and I value my people, the people that I lead, genuinely getting long-term value, long-term sustainability and longevity for whatever it is that we're working on. Those are core values. So whenever there's those moments of making a decision, I'm making a decision based off of those values, not off of what a trend, what trend is happening in that moment, not based off of what everybody else is doing. In fact, sometimes great leadership is observing the masses and doing the opposite, observing what everybody else is flocking to and doing the complete opposite. That's great leadership. So lead yourself first. Right? But most importantly, build trust, which is the next one. You keep your commitments, you be transparent, and admit mistakes fast. Don't let it fester. Don't let it just linger throughout the organization. Those are those little cancers that grow over time and kill an organization. When is the best time to kill a monster? Before it grows, right? That's the best time. So whenever you have that stuff brewing in the organization, right, and you made a mistake, rather than just letting it linger or sweeping it under the rug, you admit the mistakes fast and just be transparent. And whenever you set a commitment, you keep it. That's what you want to build a reputation on. Next is develop others. Great leaders create leaders, not just followers. It's not about how many followers you have. The greatest leaders in the world know how to build leaders, know how to create leaders, know how to draw out the very best in the people that they lead. Okay, that's the idea. So how to mentor, empower, and delegate responsibility is one of, or some of the most critical aspects of really great leadership. It's not about just having a bunch of yes men and yes women in your organization, a bunch of brown nosers, right? Where people are just sucking up to the leader. It's not about that. It's about the being that person that, you know, is constantly investing time and energy to raising the next generation of leadership. Okay, so mentoring, empowering, and delegating responsibility is how you go about developing others. Next is regulate your emotions. Leadership collapses when emotions run the show. You can't be emotionally volatile when it comes to leading organizations. there's no way you're going to lead that organization to greatness. And emotions are getting in the way, because remember, when emotion is high, logic is low. And unfortunately, you can't just you can't build your way to success just off of emotion. You have to have emotion and logic. They both work together. Next, you also have to have techniques to stay grounded. So those techniques as a leader, sometimes when you're feeling some type of way as a leader emotionally, there's techniques that you can have. There's certain strategies and tools that you can pull out of your toolkit to help you with your leadership. That could be breath work. That could be meditation. It could be those subtle pauses in the moment, journaling, reflection, going for a walk. All of these are really, really great tools to implement when you're a leader, because remember, you can't fill from an empty cup. So if you're constantly being depleted, if you're going through it emotionally, how in the world are you going to lead your organization? So being able to get back to a state of equanimity, being able to get back to that even keel I oftentimes talk about, where you're not moving in an irrational way. Leadership is being able to bounce back. Remember, responding, your ability to respond to even your emotional state. How do you show up when you're down emotionally? How do you get yourself back? And that's where the breath work, the pauses, the journaling, the reflection, the going for a walk, all of these different things to enhance your mood. You have to be able to get back to an even keel. Next, we have create a culture around you, but a culture that, again, that culture emulates who you are as a leader. So every room, remember, has a culture, and a leader defines it. The leader defines the culture. So if you're a fun person, if you're an upbeat person, positive person, chances are your culture is going to reflect that. If you're a person who's super serious, or maybe you're a hard worker, that hard work will permeate throughout your organization. And you want to always be the example for the culture you want to create in your organization or in your community. The energy you bring becomes the culture others adopt. So be the person that brings the energy to the organization. And section 5 is what makes people want to follow you. Okay, so here are a few things that are going to make people want to follow you. Number 1, they trust you. It's a big part of it. They have to trust you. Okay. They also feel seen and valued, which is a big one. They grow because of you. Now, this is one of the most critical ones, because if you're building an organization where people don't feel like they're genuinely growing in their career, they're growing as people, then why in the world would they want to do life with you? Why in the world would they want to do business with you? People have to feel like they're growing. It's one of the spiritual needs that we have as human beings. We have these spiritual needs, and those spiritual needs are things like growth and contribution. So yeah, they want to feel like they're making a difference, but they also want to feel like they're growing. People also feel safe because of you, right? You can go to them and they feel like, okay, you know, maybe this person, this leader in the organization was a tyrant, but you have another leader who can kind of like, hey, you know, just give them a little grace. They're going through it right now. You know, don't worry, you're not losing your job. Like, just bringing them a sense of safety. You also help them believe in a bigger possibility. People love following leaders like that. Leaders that see them more than they see themselves. Okay, you also show consistency and character. That's what will make people want to follow you. Okay, now these are the invisible leadership. This is the invisible leadership contract, if you will, that people follow unconsciously. They trust you, they feel seen and valued, they grow because of you, you make them feel safe, you help them believe in a bigger possibility, and you show consistency and character, right? You don't have to be the loudest person in the room, just emulate these characteristics. And the last section is going to be on the Great Leadership Challenge. So this is my challenge to our community here, right? First question is, who are you becoming through your actions? Who are you becoming? Right? Think about your actions over the last week, whether it's your family life, your career, right? Maybe your faith-based community, but who are you becoming? All right? Big part of it. Next, we have Number two, are you the leader you would want to follow? This is a big one. In business, oftentimes, one of my core pieces of advice is, are you the person that you would sign up with in that organization? Maybe you're pitching someone on your business opportunity. Well, are you the person that you would follow, that you would want to follow? That's one of the biggest leadership hacks that you could possibly create, is genuinely emulating the person that you would want to follow as a leader. And lastly is, what small shift can you make today that raises your leadership standard, raises your level of excellence? What small shift can you make today? Out of everything that we've covered, what are some of the shifts that you can make to really take yourself to the next level? Okay, so remember, send appreciation, make one tough decision, and lead by example. So just to recap everything, right? Remember, it's about having vision, emotional intelligence as a leader, communication, great decision-making skills, and accountability, right? You have to stay calm under pressure, stay consistent, but not emotional. You treat people with dignity and fairness. You inspire people through example, not words. You tell people the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And you uplift the room. You don't drain it. You have discipline, humility, and courage, right? All of these different things play a big part. And remember, lead yourself first. Build trust, develop others, regulate your emotions, and create a culture around you that basically embodies who you are as a person. And I can assure you, if you implement these things, you will definitely be able to do some incredible things in this world and lead the next generation to greatness. Ladies and gentlemen, breakfast is served. If you got value from today's session, drop a comment. You could put a V for value, or just, drop one of your biggest takeaways. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Definitely goes a long way, and I truly appreciate it. And all in all, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll be seeing you soon. Take care. Breakfast is served.